What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. Today is going to be part 2 in the series of dangerous things that people do that can get them in a wreck in prison. Today I want to talk about frivolous comments or frivolous conversations. I don't think a lot of people even understand that. And so, when I tell these stories, I like to give examples, real life examples, right? And one of those that fits in frivolous comments is co-signing for somebody. When you're in prison here in California and somebody lands on the yard or somebody lands in the hole with you or whatever, right? And people don't know the individual and you do, they're going to ask, hey, Holmes, does anybody know this vato? And a person that is unseasoned, I told a story about this in the hole in Tehachapi. An individual landed, and before he got cleared to come out to the yard, we were in a junta meeting, and that was a topic we have to discuss. Hey, so-and-so landed, we checked his paperwork. His paperwork's clear. But we want to know, does anybody here know him? And right away, there was a younger homie, who was eager to talk about this dude and how down he is and how great of a homie he is and good vato and all this stuff, good guy. And I was standing there, and this younger homie, this was his first ad seg. He had never been to the shoe. He had never even been to a serious yard. He landed in Tehachapi, and this is when Tehachapi was in flux, when they had just started sending dudes down there and flipping the yard over. So he had never really been around anybody or anything or any situations to understand the seriousness of what he was doing. Tehachapi ad seg was a snake pit, because there were a lot of dudes who had been out there too long and they got an issue back there. They didn't get whacked, but they got stomped out. And now they want to try to, make their name like, hey, Holmes, that's not the reputation they wanted. So, hey, homie, let me do this. And so there were a lot of dudes that were eager to stab another homie in the back. And so I'm listening to this dude just putting this other guy on a pedestal. Yeah, he's a good homie, this and that. Whoop. He's this, he's that. And I'm just in my head like, wow, this is Tehachapi. Like, how do you know what he did? So anyways, after the junta was over, I called him to the side and I was like, hey, Holmes, and I talked to you real quick. He's like, what's up? And I said, hey, the vato that you were talking about, when was the last time you were around him? Like, where do you know him from? And it turned out they knew each other from like the county jail or something. I've told this story a bunch of times. And while they were in the county, he was, doing stuff in the county, whatever it was. And I said, why didn't you say that? He's like, what do you mean? I said, why didn't you say, hey, I was in the county with that vato, and when we were in the county, he was doing this, this, and that, but I haven't seen him ever since. I said, that's what you're supposed to say. And as an example, later on, when another bus came, there was an individual that I knew from New Folsom. He landed in Tehachapi. Once again, hey, this vato came, this is his Sally, whoop, do you guys know any of these dudes? And I said, no, I know that one. I said, I was in New Folsom with them. While we were there, everything was cool. He is a hothead, but he's a good homie. But, that was a few years ago. I haven't seen or heard anything about him ever since. They were like, okay. And the problem with that whole, that's the homie right there, this and that. Well, what if it turns out that he's a rat? Or what if it turns out that he had a bad case that nobody knew about, and one of his homeboys lands on the yard, is like, hey, Holmes, this vato got hemmed up for this, and that. Oh, serio? And they look at you. So with this cat, Holmes? This Vato's co-signing for a fucking rat? Or this Vato's co-signing for a Vato that has bad paperwork? Yeah, we're going to have to look into this cat. And now you become subject of an investigation. Worst case scenario, they whack you. Best case scenario, they send you on a mission. Because they're going to want to know that you really are loyal to who you're running with and that you got the balls to put in work. So there's that. And that could just be based off of a frivolous comment, right? Frivolous conversations as well. Now, frivolous conversations can, I always say in prison, don't ever think any conversation is frivolous. Somebody can be hunting for something. You don't know. Somebody could be looking to lock it up and leave the yard. And he's looking for information for certain things. And let's say you were involved in a certain thing in another prison. And this dude knows you were involved, but wants to get more detail. So what that individual does is he makes up an entire theory in his mind, a story. And he says, hey, man, weren't you over in, let's just say it was in New Folsom. Hey, weren't you in New Folsom when in this year? Yeah, I was there. Yeah, Holmes, I heard about this thing, and he goes with the whole entire theory that he completely made up out of thin air. And then you correct it. Nah, homie, I was there. I was actually a part of that. It didn't go down like that. This is what really happened. And you explain the whole thing. And maybe it was one of his family members or his close homeboys that got done wrong or got whacked or got killed on the yard. And now he got you to give him details on how it happened. He could turn around and if you were involved and hits a family member of his, he could go ahead and decide he has a personal issue with you. If it's somebody that wants to lock it up, now he's got information to give the cops. That's why you don't engage in frivolous conversations. Somebody asks you a question, it's for a reason. You don't know what the reason is. And even if it is harmless, you still examine the angles. Where's this question going to go? And you have to do it like that. I want to talk about one last thing before I go. And I believe I've told this story, but I want to just point out, I want, when people say Dubs talk slow, this topic right here hopefully gives you a better glimpse into why. I'm not trying to just run off at the mouth. Words are not impressive, especially to killers and gangsters. Fuck what you say, it's what you do, right? And so, after the riot in Pelican Bay in 2000, unfortunately, it was a mess. And I'd say it was a mess. A lot of people got put under the microscope, some that didn't have it coming. People pencil whipped other people they didn't like. And by pencil whipping, I mean they wrote something and sent it to somebody who had the say so. And then we're getting dudes hit. And dudes were getting hit left and right. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say after the Pelican Bay riot, in Ad Seg, after the bloodbath was over amongst the Southerners internally, I could probably say there was, if not 50, close to 50 good dudes that got pushed out, forced out, whacked out behind the politics of that riot. There was a lot involved. There was a lot of stuff going on internally leading up to the riot. And people paid a price in Ad Seg. Once that was taken care of, then it was time to take care of the stuff in-house. There was an individual there from Watts. Good dude, man. Really good dude. And my cousin was the only Mexican hurt in that riot. And the blacks got him. They broke his jaw. They knocked some of his teeth out. He had a piece, and he thought the crowd he was with was rushing a specific crowd. They weren't. They were rushing a different crowd. And he got separated, and he stabbed one of the blacks in the face, and the piece got stuck in the dude's jaw somehow. And he rushed a group of 6 blacks. And when he rushed them and his piece got stuck, they got to hurting him. And I talked to him later. I was upset with him. And he told me all he was thinking was, don't let them get this piece, because if they get it, then we're going to kill him with it. He was able to get the piece out of the dude's face. He threw it. The cops had dropped from because they were right there at the handball court on B facility. The cop was able to drop a grenade down, which is a canister. It was actually a canister, right? A tear gas canister, I think, is what they dropped on him. And one of the blacks, while they were beating my cousin, took his shirt off, put the can in his shirt, tied it up, and was beating my cousin with it. And that's how he broke his jaw and knocked some teeth out, right? When homies were trying to run over there to help my cousin, the cop was shooting rounds, live rounds at him with a Mini 14, keeping him away. And the one homie from Watts that I want to talk about, he said, man, fuck that, because he doesn't know, the homies don't know if my cousin was getting killed. So he ran into the gunfire and pushed the blacks off of him, laid on top of him, wrapped his arms around him, and the blacks started getting on him. And his whole thing was trying to cover my cousin, right? While we're in that SEG, word came down that the dude from Watts had an issue coming. Now, I know kind of what happened, and it had nothing to do with anything he did wrong. It had to do with where he was from, and someone didn't like him. And they abused their position and pencil whipped this guy from Watts. And one of his closest camaradas on the yard in Ad Seg, along with another individual, jumped on him with razors and scarred him up pretty bad. And the dude from Watts wound up getting put on single cell walk alone. And he refused to lock it up. He refused to go into protective custody. He knew he didn't do nothing wrong. And the majority of us knew he did nothing wrong. We saw what it was. We knew what it was. But see, the person who wrote the letter got it approved by a legend. Nobody can overturn another legend. I mean, a legend, period. Another legend can't overturn a legend. They have to come to an agreement, discuss it, whatever. That's what, their business, whatever they do. And he kept saying, I ain't going nowhere, Holmes. And every day he would ask for a cellie. Every day he would ask to be placed on yard. He would go to committee and ask to be taken off of single cell walk alone. He would show us his 128 Gs that he had asked committee to take him off of single cell walk alone. Finally, they did. And they put a homie in his cell, a homie that I had met in Tehachapi at Seg. And this homie was cool as hell. He had actually, him and his homeboy whacked somebody in Tehachapi, cut his throat almost completely all the way around. I mean, there was like this much where it would have connected. And it was somebody who was very well known and very, very wanted. And so he got a lot of points for that. He got a lot of kudos for that. And he was a good dude. They put him in the cell with the dude from Watts. This dude, he was from the SGB. He was real skinny, man. The dude from Watts wasn't. The dude from the SGB was on our yard group. My Sally was one of the ones running the oil, so my voice was involved in some of the things, not all the things. I made sure my voice was involved in that. Because they called the homie over. They told him, hey, we need you to whack your Sally, Holmes. We know, everybody likes him, but this is out of our hands. We can't do nothing to save him. And the homie from the SGV told him, hey, I'll get off on him, but I'm not going to whack him because this is a bad call. And they were like, look, we're telling you what you got to do, and you're going to do what you do, and then we'll go from there. He said, all right, I'm willing to take whatever comes with it because this is not the right call, homie. This is a bad call. So at yard recall, he goes, everybody goes in, and this dude later on moves on his celly. And the dude from Watts beat the brakes off of him. I mean, he literally, when they cuffed those guys up and brought them out of the cell, the dude from the SGV literally had shoe prints on his body. He was beat down and had shoe prints all over his body. The homie from Watts could have killed him if he wanted to, but he didn't. And he came back and he said, I ain't going nowhere, Holmes. You vatos are going to have to kill me, eh? Like he said, he didn't do nothing wrong and he's going to keep fighting. And immediately, the leadership right there in the ADSEG said that they needed to discuss the dude from SGV. They wanted to send his name and end his career because he didn't understand. And I made sure. We went to yard. I told my celly, hey, do me a favor, Holmes. Have that conversation on the yard so I can talk to all three of you guys at once. We went out to yard and I spoke up for the dude from the SGV. I said, look, Holmes, the only yard that Vato's ever been on was Tehachapi. He barely got to the bay. He barely got here right before the riot, Holmes. He's got a good heart. He's got good intentions. He just don't have no schooling. He didn't understand that when he was telling you Vatos that's a bad call. He didn't understand he's disrespecting a legend. He thinks he's telling you guys that you guys are making a bad call. This is who he hit. These dudes whacked this dude real good, and that should be worth something. And, for those of you curious, the decision was to whack him, but not wash him up. Once he gets hit, he takes his medicine. If he takes his medicine and sticks around, then he's just going to get put up to bat to put in work. If he locks it up, oh well. It was the best I could do for him. The next yard ran, and he got whacked. When he came back from medical, he said, I ain't going nowhere. And then it was explained to him. And they also let him know what I did for him, which they didn't have to do. And he thanked me, and I told him, hey, just be careful. Be careful what you say to people. Understand, think, look at everything involved, But anyways, it all boiled down to a frivolous statement. That's a bad call, Holmes. I don't agree with it. You're nobody to disagree with it. They ask you to do something, you want to know, why is this going to happen to him? That way, when you're questioned, when you go to the shoe, you can explain, hey, this is what they told me. So I was like, I got you. If it's wrong, they'll take care of it. But you did right. You did what you were asked to do. Anyways, that's my video for today, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out of here.